Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Womack, and I will be presiding over the evening's events. I am a curatorial assistant at the Hood Museum of Art and a member of the Dartmouth class of 2014. This is the 14th Annual Social Justice Awards, established in 2002 by the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee, which has a diverse membership from a variety of departments at Dartmouth College. These awards were established to recognize individual alumni, faculty, and staff, as well as student groups, for their commitment to causes of social justice, civil rights, peace, education, public health, or environmental justice. This year's Social Justice Award ceremony is co-sponsored by the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee, the Office of Institutional Diversity and Equity, and the William Jewett Tucker Foundation. The evening will begin with music by the Dartmouth Rockapellas. Please join me in welcoming the Rockapellas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. Again, as Jessica said, we're the Dartmouth Rockapellas. We're an all-female a cappella group on campus. And one of the reasons that we are so excited to be here today is that our group has a special message in terms of spreading social justice awareness through song. In every set that we sing, we include one song that we call a freedom song, which is a song whose message is related to an issue of social justice that we care about. Today we have two such songs for you. The first one is called Would You Harbor Me? It was originally sung by Sweet Honey in the Rock. And it's a song about acknowledging and embracing our differences in order to celebrate our shared humanity. So hope you enjoy it.
Ella's song. The lyrics to this song was originally by Sweet Honey in the Rock, and the lyrics are taken from speeches by Ella Baker, who was a civil rights activist who did a lot of work with grassroots activism in the 1960s and beyond throughout the civil rights movement. And so while we sing this for you today, we did want to take a minute to recognize the fact that this is our group of people who identify the way that we do singing this song to you, and more so just recognize what this song means in light of recent activism around the country surrounding the deaths of Eric Garner and Michael Brown and community rights and all of the other Black and Brown and LGBTQIA and so on bodies that have suffered in this country and really everywhere. So this is Ella's song. Thank you.
Who believe in freedom cannot rest. Oh, oh. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others just to stand up and fight is the only way our struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Oh, don't you rest, don't you rest. Believe in freedom cannot rest. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Oh, don't you rest, don't you rest. Believe in freedom cannot rest.
Thank you, Rockapellas, for that lovely and poignant performance. It's now my pleasure to introduce Phil Hanlon, our 18th president in the Wheelock succession. As many of you know, President Hanlon is a proud member of the class of 1977. Since returning to campus, President Hanlon has prioritized keeping Dartmouth at the forefront of undergraduate education through expanding our mark on global issues and increasing experiential learning opportunities in order to prepare students to become the next generation of world leaders. So please join me in welcoming President Phil Hanlon.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure for Gail and me to join you in what is always a fitting culmination to the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. each year. I say fitting because the individuals and organizations we honor today, each in their own unique ways, represent something so essential to Dr. King's vision. And that's the belief that each has the power to bring positive change to our own communities, our nation, and our world. Dr. King said, "Labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance that should be undertaken with painstaking excellence." And today, we are going to celebrate 5 bold examples of such labor, case studies in painstaking excellence. Dr. Richard Joseph, class of '65, who began a journey at Dartmouth that would see him return to us 50 years later, one of the world's foremost experts on African politics and conflict resolution. A career marked by groundbreaking scholarship, policy analysis, and program action. Connie Clery, who along with her husband Howard, emerged from deep personal tragedy with the resolve to take action so that other parents of college students need never endure such pain. To date, the Clery's work has led to the passage of 28 state and 6 federal laws that are improving campus safety nationwide. Frank Venegas, where's Frank? Oh, there's Frank, who as an innovative business leader has taken it upon himself to engage corporations, nonprofits, government, and educational institutions to build a partnership that is transforming Southwest Detroit, creating jobs, increasing graduation rates, and removing barriers to opportunity. Gabrielle Lucke, where's Gabrielle? There's Gabrielle, a colleague of ours at Dartmouth, who has applied a passion for higher education, health, and public policy towards a career in service to numerous colleges and universities. And we are so proud to say she is now applying this expertise in the Vermont House of Representatives. How's that going, Gabrielle?
Week 3's been good.
All right. And of course, Gail and I are especially proud of our co-fired student leaders. The energy and passion they bring to their efforts to create a more welcoming, inclusive environment for undocumented immigrants, both here on campus and nationwide, represents Dartmouth at our very best. As unique as each of these honorees' stories are, a common thread throughout has been their ability to move from advocacy to action. And those of you who attended last year's Social Justice Awards will remember our panelists, our reward recipients, when they were in panel, speaking a lot about this. The transition from the articulation of vision to the identification and pursuit of positive actions that actually move towards these goals is perhaps the most challenging aspect of any worthwhile cause, certainly any cause that seeks to uplift humanity, as Dr. King would put it. And so this afternoon, we have a chance to be inspired by the unique stories of transforming energy into the energy of advocacy into positive action that each of these individuals and groups represents. It is a moment that Gail and I are so pleased to share in, and on behalf of the entire Dartmouth community, we want to extend our heartfelt appreciation to our honorees for embodying the values and vision that Dr. King so eloquently described to us. We are humbled by your work, and we are honored to have you at Dartmouth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those words, President Hanlon. As I mentioned before, I'm a curatorial assistant at the Hood Museum of Art, a position I've held since graduation last June. I stayed to work at the Hood Museum because of an exhibition the museum was hosting in the fall, and it was called Witness, Art and Civil Rights in the 60s. I hope a lot of you got the chance to see it last term. The exhibition focused on the role that artists of various different backgrounds played as activists, capturing and responding to the tumultuous events taking place across the country during the 1960s civil rights movement. This show, and particularly the student engagement that the museum orchestrated in conjunction with the exhibition, really energized me and showed me exactly how art, including that made 50 years ago, resonates with our collective lived experience today and is something we can continue to learn from and bring our own subjectivity to. I had the pleasure of working with over 20 student organizations and engaging over 400 students in the exhibition with substantive conversations about race, identity, social justice, and activism. And actually, the Rockapellas performed in the exhibition, and one of our student honorees, Oscar Conejo, actually orchestrated a tour for the Latina community in the exhibition as well. So that brings me to introducing our first award, the Martin Luther King Jr. Social Justice Award for our student organization. This award honors a student group for its commitment to promoting social justice in our community and beyond. The recipient of this year's award for student organization is Co-Fired. Dartmouth's Co-Fired, which stands for Coalition for Immigration Reform, Equality, and Dreamers, was established in the fall of 2013. They are dedicated to the advancement of human rights and equal legal and social treatment of undocumented immigrants, both at Dartmouth and throughout the nation. They collaborate with multiple campus departments, including the Office of Visa and Immigration Services, Financial Aid, and various academic departments, to increase the quality of services for undocumented students on Dartmouth's campus. One of their major achievements, called Drop the I Word, began with the staff at the Baker Berry Library and is now a petition to get the Library of Congress to change the subject heading from illegal aliens to undocumented immigrants. The campaign focuses on spreading awareness around the social view of the label illegal. Could all the members of Co-Fired and their advisor, Douglas Moody, please rise and come down? Thank you so much. So I'm going to name the members. This is Oscar Conejo, and then Halimo Hassan, Estefany Marian, Denise Hernandez, Josue Ruiz, and Oscar. And, I'm sorry? Murillo. What's your last? Oh, it's okay. And Murillo. Thank you. And so now we have one of our board members, Oscar Conejo, who is here to accept the award on behalf of the entire group. Oh, sure. You can set up the panel. Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming down. I would like to now ask Evelyn Ellis, Vice President for Institutional Diversity and Equity, to come forward and introduce the individual awards.
I feel sorry for you. You're there all alone.
I know. In a couple minutes, more people will come down.
It won't be. Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2015 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Social Justice Awards ceremony at Dartmouth. For those of you who are returning to the Social Justice Awards, welcome back, and we're happy to see you. For those of you who are new, welcome, and know that you are joining a 14-year-long Dartmouth tradition that has provided us the privilege to honor outstanding contributors to social justice. If you're here for the second or the third time, you know that my opening address is always wrapped in a family story that helps express the power of the awards being given and the incredible talents of the people receiving them. I will continue that tradition. In my family, we use stories from our past to help new family members and friends understand who we were in the past, who we are now, and who we hope to be in the future. It is also a way to welcome people into our sacred family spaces. I do hope, for those of you who have suffered through my stories over the years, feel a part of my family history and appreciate the invitation to be a part of the years of history that lie ahead of us as I do my part to contribute to the history of Dartmouth. Whether you find yourself talking to an Ellis, which is my paternal family, or a Small, my maternal family, it is possible that you will observe, quite quickly actually, that we can be a determined lot. Most of us spent our childhoods hearing, don't ever quit. You can do anything you put your mind to. Don't give up, et cetera, et cetera. As children and teenagers, it is likely we cringed hearing these mandates. As adults, however, we embraced them and we lived up to them. The past 5 years, I have had the privilege to test my ability to continue to live up to them. And when in doubt, something always snapped me back to attention. I spent over 30 years of my life as a competitive distance runner. Few things pleased me more than finding a long, challenging course and running it. No oval track failed to invite me to see just how quickly I could run a 200 or 400, 800 or a mile. Life was good, as they often say. 4 years ago dealt me a horrific, yet a somewhat curious blow. I developed a movement disorder that made running near impossible and racing definitely out of the question. It was if a close relative had died and no one could explain what caused that death. As any good academic would do, I researched the heck out of it, only to continuously learn that I would spend a lot of years as someone's research rat. But my chances of ever running again were about 10%. Some days were downright gloomy. But true to form, I adopted the Ellis Creed. Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and get on with it. I found new sports to do and improved some older ones that were sitting in my memory just waiting to be revisited when I was taking a break from running. Life went on. I, however, reached a new low when I visited my mother this past summer. I had finished a walk, and as I approached my mother's home, I felt the justified question of why me, and why can't this be something else? But as I turned the corner to the rear of my family home, I saw my mother, who was wheelchair-bound, watering her vegetable garden. She moved like a trapeze artist to get from one section to the next, from row on row to the next. It did not occur to her that she simply could have asked someone else to do it. In her mind, she could do anything she put her mind to, if it was something she actually wanted to do. Magically, every negative thought I had worked up in my mind raced out as if running from a forest fire. Suddenly, I remembered that we need not have the world work the way we would prefer it worked to achieve what we want to achieve, but we did need perseverance, determination, focus, and faith in ourselves. My mother showed me all of those things by simply watering her garden. You, all of our honorees, have shown us these things in the work you have done throughout your lives. And for that, please let us honor you. We will continue with the presentation of the individual awards. The Social Justice Awards were originally conceived to honor members of our community and to provide us with a venue in which we may acknowledge and reflect on their accomplishments. They are presented tonight in the following categories: the Holly Sateia Award, the Martin Luther King Jr. Social Justice Award for ongoing commitment, the Martin Luther King Jr. Social Justice Award for lifetime achievement, and the Tucker Foundation Lester B. Granger Class of 2018 Award for lifetime achievement. Each award recipient will be presented with the clock that we tell you do not take through the airport, inscribed with his or her name, and an engraving of Dartmouth Hall. The gift of a clock was inspired by a quote from Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do right. The presentations of awards will be followed by a panel discussion with the honorees about their lives and careers working for social justice. So why don't we get started? I would like to invite Molly, please come up, to help me present the first award, which is the Holly Fair Sateia Award. This year's award goes to Gabrielle Lucke. Gabrielle works as a senior training and development consultant with the Office of Human Resources at Dartmouth. For close to 30 years, Gabrielle has served colleges and universities in many roles as an administrator, faculty member, health educator, counselor. She has frequently served as a contracted grant reviewer with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Safe and Drug-Free Schools. Each summer, Gabrielle serves as a lead faculty with Leadership Institute. As our president told you, 2014, Gabrielle was elected to the Vermont House of Representatives, sitting on the House Committee on General Housing and Military Affairs. I am a Vermonter. Welcome, Gabrielle. Gabrielle lives with her family in Hartford, where she serves on the Board of Education, had served on the Board of Education, and is currently on the Board of Directors for Second Growth, a local nonprofit serving the Upper Valley here in Vermont. I want to bring up Molly. She told me there was no way I was going to hand Gabrielle this award without her also helping.
My name is Molly Saintsver, and I work in the Office of Institutional Diversity and Equity. I've had the honor to work for both Holly Sateia and Gabrielle Lucke. I know the characteristics of both these women, and I would like to share why Gabrielle is deserving of the Holly Fair Sateia Award. There is certain criteria that the Social Justice Award Committee uses as a guideline in the selection process: compassion, courage, perseverance, leadership, ability to foster human dignity, civil rights, education, public health, and social justice. As I have witnessed, Gabrielle demonstrates these qualities. Gabrielle has worked in many areas of the college: health resources, residential education, the College Center, institutional diversity and equity, and human resources. In every department that she has worked, she has brought a sense of warmth, energy, balance, equality, and a voice for the voiceless. Gabrielle has touched the lives of many students, faculty, and staff on campus. As she walks across campus, she may say hello, be stopped for a conversation, a hug, or a wink of the eye by 7 out of 10 people that she encounters. Gabrielle is a mentor to young people on campus, to young women in her community, and to a host of women in the Upper Valley who look to her for her experience, strength, and hope. She has taught many of us in this room how to walk with grace, dignity, and honor. I'm very grateful that she has been a part of my life for the last 24 years. It was a great pleasure that we award Gabrielle Lucke with the Holly Fair Sateia Award.
Hang out with you now, Oscar.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Oscar.
And I think you have some remarks.
Sir.
These guests just just never do what they're doing.
No. And I even have the script, so it's good. I just want to take a moment. And first and foremost, I need to thank my partner in life. Without George, really not much could be going on with me. And also, it's a privilege and honor to get to parent both Matthew and Andrew. So we're quite blessed as a family. For me, I think the thing I want to definitely thank those that I've had the privilege and honor to work with at this institution through many years and through many phases of Dartmouth and who we are. And more importantly, and I can't go without recognizing the importance of this morning and President Hanlon's remarks and challenge about moving us forward as an institution, one that I am very proud to continue to be with. It hasn't always been easy. There have been many challenges and many joys, but it's always worth coming back. And for me, I appreciate that. So not only do I like to think that I have resiliency, I love the resiliency of our institution, which gives me the honor and the privilege, which I would say, to now serve my community and my state in the legislature by being able to create a flexible working schedule so that I can continue to support my family in the ways that I need to, as well as to serve the community. And hopefully, Vermont is a leader in many areas, and so fortunately, we may show Washington, D.C. how to maybe take better care of some things down there. But thank you.
Okay, so the next honoree, you know that you are to come up and do some comments there. I'm pleased to present the Ongoing Commitment Award to Frank Venegas. Frank is the chairman of the Ideal Group, a $250 million enterprise headquartered in Detroit, Michigan. However, it's not his business sense that gets him here tonight. Frank has dedicated his career to fostering social justice. A man from a humble background, he started his career as a floor sweeper in a steel factory. His keen sense of opportunity for business got the attention of his supervisor, and he would have risen in the ranks there except for his motivation. Also a little lucky break. In 1979, he won a Cadillac in a lottery and sold it to provide the startup capital he needed to found his first enterprise. That business grew to become one of the largest Hispanic-owned enterprises in this country. Now he uses his innovation to work with local corporations, nonprofits, government, and community groups in his Southwest Detroit neighborhood. They focus on education and opportunities for youth and their families, developing sustainable jobs and satisfying careers. Frank is a graduate of Tuck's Minority Business Executive Program and remains involved with the program, both as serving on their board, but also attending the programs to speak with aspiring entrepreneurs and minority business leaders from across the country. Could we please welcome Frank?
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it.
I never like going first, and I'm usually not real short, but someone told me the 5 B's, and that's be brief, brother, be brief, okay? And more than anything, that I just practice what I practice, and I don't know any better. I really don't. I do what I do, and why I do it, it's I just look at it, it's the best for what should be done for the day. And I can still remember when they brought me the prisoners in '82 and said, how would you like to train prisoners to work? And I said, sure. Then I had the chance to teach them how to fabricate steel and measure things and do things, and I just found it was just something that was just normal. Everything we do is just what we were taught in life. I'm an old tough guy from a neighborhood, and I worked real hard, and I had the opportunity to win a car and start a business. I often think about, gosh, how many girls I could have met in that car. But I met my dream of my life, Lori Solon. Without Lori, it wouldn't be here, and my daughter, Lindsay, and my assistant for 23 years, Sylvia Guckin. But I had a odd opportunity about 15 years ago. And Chrysler Corporation called me up and said, you won this opportunity to go to Tuck at Dartmouth. And I looked where it was on the map, and I said, holy moly. And they said, you need to go there for a week, and we want to remind you the phones don't work there, and you can't do much except practice what the doctor preach. And I had the opportunity at that time to meet Dr. Len Greenhall, and from that point on, he said to me, you know, you can do so much more, you can organize yourself so much better, but more importantly, you get a chance for this time for education here at Dartmouth that maybe no one could ever imagine until you had the day here. And I've never forgot it, and we send students here today. But education has become a prime part of my thing. I've been very fortunate in making money, and now I've become a philanthropist, and my main mission is to gain and make sure that people have the opportunity to learn, to be educated, but most importantly, to improve themselves. But with the improvement of themselves, they have to give back and improve their family and others. And I don't know what else to say, but thank you.
Okay, Connie, let's see how you're going to work this. Our next award goes to Constance Clery, the award for lifetime achievement. In 1986, the worst happened to Connie and her husband, Howard. Their daughter, Jean, was the victim of an on-campus attack. The Clerys wanted to make sure that no other family had to endure a similar tragedy because they were unaware of campus crime. Connie, along with her husband, co-founded Security on Campus in 1987. President George H.W. Bush honored the Clerys for their crime victims' rights work in a 1990 Rose Gardens ceremony. Connie has worked with Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, to make college campuses across this nation safer. During the fall of 2011, Connie and her son, Ben, were special guests of the Vice President to celebrate the 17th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act. Connie was responsible for running Safety on Security for its first 20 years and continues to serve as chairwoman emerita. Connie's late husband, Howard, was a member of the Dartmouth class of '53 and a Tuck class of 1954. She has maintained relationships with both his class and with Tuck. She established the Howard K. Clery Jr. at 1953 and Tuck 1954. It gets complicated at Dartmouth. And the Constance B. Clery Family Scholarship Fund in 2004. Could you please help me welcome Connie Clery?
We want to thank you. I know I used the wrong pronoun, President Hanlon, but Howard's here. I know it. He must be smiling. So, I had a dream after Jeannie died. I had a dream. And President Hanlon, you are going to make it come true. I cannot thank you enough for asking me to be here. My dream was that college campuses will become safe for students so they can have good learning, fun, but graduate with healthy minds and bodies, because otherwise the college experience, the learning is useless. So Howard and I dragged him into this because he didn't have the dream in the beginning, but I dragged him, and he was true Dartmouth man, courageous, very well educated, and what a team we made. Thank you so much.
Richard, you have had 2 bad examples and 2 good ones. So it's hit or miss for you. So now we have the rhythm of the taking of the award. I am pleased to present the Tucker Foundation Lester B. Granger Class of 18 Award to Richard Joseph, a proud member of the class of 1965. He is the John Evans Professor of International History and Politics at Northwestern University and a non-resident senior fellow in global economy and development at the Brookings Institute. He directed the African Governance Program at the Carter Center and was directly involved in initiatives around democracy and peace building in Ethiopia, Ghana, Liberia, Sudan, and Zambia. He is also a longtime member of the Council of Foreign Relations and was the principal investigator for the Research Alliance to combat HIV/AIDS. Throughout his professional career, he has combined academic scholarship, policy analysis, and program action. He is the author of several publications, too many to mention here, and recipient of multiple awards, again, too many to mention here, around his work in politics, economics, and African governance and democracy. Richard is the founder of Africa Plus Project, a website devoted to the promotion of growth, democracy, and security in Africa, and the pursuit of progress in these areas. His recent essays, written in response to the Boko Haram insurgency and political uncertainty, are consistent with his contributions to policy analysis and program action concerning Nigeria over 3 decades. Please help me welcome Richard.
All right, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure being here. This is a great moment for Dartmouth. For those of us who were present in the Hopkins Center this morning to hear President Hanlon speak on behalf of this great community. And it's good to know that his words are going to go all over this land. And perhaps even reach my 5 grandchildren. You know, there are so many thoughts that comes to one mind. We've given 1 to 2 minutes to say some remarks. But the point I want to make is, you know, I'm standing here, but there's a whole lot of people that are standing around and behind me. You know, President Obama said something that he had to backtrack from, but which is so correct when he said, you know, you didn't build this. and people objected. The fact is that those of us who are members of such great institutions at Dartmouth and who are able to build the careers that we do as a result of Dartmouth, we did not build this on our own. All along, I mean, you know, from the person who accepted this boy from Brooklyn who applied early decision to come to Dartmouth and to be one of the 5 black students in my class of over 800, and gave me the financial aid to do so. Starting from that person all the way through all the people were contributors to this. There's so many I can single out of. There's not enough time to, but I will mention my wife, Jennifer, who, you know, we've been married for 46 years, and I'm not that old, so neither is she. So, so we, as you can tell, we've been together a great amount of time. And Jennifer has served this college with great distinction in affirmative action, as an assistant dean of the freshman office, as director of the intensive academic support program, as a senior associate for admissions and financial aid. And so she has been a great partner. And I will also mention Grace Hill. Within my family, we call her Lady Grace. Not to her face, but we do. And Grace Hill is the widow of Professor Errol Hill, who will be known to many of you and who is a much lamented professor here. So I'll have the time to talk later on, but this is really such a moment. I have had moments of being very proud of Dartmouth, and I tell you, this morning was really one of those great moments. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to begin the panel discussion part of this ceremony. We'll be beginning with Oscar Cornejo, and beginning with each honoree will address the following questions. And I will remind you, forget the questions, so no need to panic. What have you most wanted to change through your life's work? What have you most wanted to change through your life's work? Did your passion for social justice have roots in your Dartmouth or your college experience? What one lesson have you learned about social change that you would like to share? And the final question, how do you sustain the passion that you bring to your work? After we do this panel discussion, we'll have a question and answer session. For those of you who will be asking questions, and I know there will be many, I ask you to remain within a short question, not so much a comment, but definitely a question. The honorees will remain within their time frame so they can give you a lot of time to ask questions. So Oscar, could we start with you?
Sure. So those questions are, I felt like, for people who graduated in the last century. Like the first question, but I'll try my best. So okay. So my name is Oscar. I am a 17, so that means I'm a sophomore. And Co-Fired, Coalition for Migration Reform, Equality, and Dreamers, is only about a little over a year old. It was actually our anniversary last week. So 1 year, happy birthday, Co-Fired. Prior to Co-Fired, there was nothing on this institution, no public support for undocumented students. And it was really an environment where we lived in the shadows. It was a don't ask who's undocumented and don't tell who's undocumented. So it wasn't the best conducive environment for students on campus. So at this time, I was a first-year student. So you can imagine first-year student starting an organization. That's a lot of to do on one student, but I have many people who have helped me. And to address the first question, what do you hope to do? With Co-Fired, I would want the perception of undocumented immigrants to change from this lazy, leeching people that come to steal and do nothing. And I use the example of my father, who works 3 jobs, sometimes just 2, sometimes just 1. But when he does have 3 jobs, he says that each job that he has is for each one of his children. Because we came to this country because in Mexico we didn't have anything. We lived in poverty, we had limited opportunities. So we came to this country and we didn't do it the legal way. I want to say that borders and laws are social constructions. They only exist in your mind. They don't exist anywhere else. Even the river that divides Mexico and the US is just something that exists in your mind. It's just a river. If you look from space, it's just water. It's nothing else. So we came to this country looking for a better opportunity. And that's why I applied to Dartmouth, because I wanted to make sure that my parents' sacrifices were not in vain. And in many ways, I still feel unqualified to lead the movement because I don't feel like I'm the person that's been the most loud, the most passionate, or the most vocal. But I am a person that wants to see change, who has a vision for this college, who wants to see it a better environment for us. We're working to get there, and I hope with President Hanlon's help that we can get there. So my passion for social justice did not begin here at Dartmouth. I already had a consciousness of social justice before because I had this unique status that no one else really had or understood. I also come from a low-income family. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm Latino and I'm undocumented. That's a lot of pressure. And I've sometimes cracked down in that pressure. To feel that you have to do everything perfectly because your brothers and siblings want to have a role model. I really don't have someone to look up to and say, this is what I want to be, or come in for help and say, I can't do this. I need your help. It's very difficult to do. But I've negotiated and managed how to do that, and I hope with Co-Fire, that's where we can establish a support network for undocumented students, and we've worked towards that. One lesson that I've learned so far, I suppose, is that we're working against a system that requires lifetimes to change, that is a slow process. You can disrupt the system, you can bring it attention, just like we've done last year when we occupied President Hanlon's office. We brought to light a lot of attentions that I feel have not been brought to light, like the undocumented student experience prior to Co-Fire. We didn't even exist. We were not in the radar. There are many undocumented students on this campus. And even I, who I am undocumented, don't even know all of them. But I want to challenge that and say that it's okay to come out from the shadows, because there are people here in this community that want to see you succeed, that want to see you move on and do great things. And I sustain my work hoping to see a better future by having a vision, by working with people like Halimo and Denise and Professor Moody that are here with us today, that are part of the board. I also want to thank them, because without them, we couldn't have been able to accomplish a lot of the things that we've been able to do. There are other individuals that couldn't be here today, but like Josefina, Josue, Stephanie, and Professor Nahera and Professor Anguiano, who are no longer with us. So President Helen, I speak directly to you now. We need your help to create a better Dartmouth for undocumented students, and I hope that we can work together to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Oscar, I can assure you that your family is proud of you. We at Dartmouth are proud of you, and we will help you and others with that vision. Now we are to Gabrielle.
I, like Oscar, thought my life's work. I think I'm only midway through. But I have to say, for me, when I kind of look at the work that I've done to this point and what I hope to do in the future is really to contribute to the prosperity of others. And I use the word prosperity broadly to talk about well-being. I think it's important for people to have food, for all people to have a home, for all mothers, children to be safe, whether it's their sons in hoodies or their daughters on college campuses. And I also think it's really important, and I so appreciate getting to sit here with Oscar, that all people can be citizens of the country they call home. I think it's an important piece, and an avenue to that is education, that for us to have access to education, all of us, whether or not it's that early childhood moment where really those professionals are teaching families how to show up and be a parent. It's not about the kids, it's about getting the adults together in early childhood education. It's about those people that are fully present for our youth and for our teachers and for the people that are working in schools that are wrestling with really, really hard issues. It's the kid who back at home, maybe they're taking care of all their siblings because mom and dad are drunk, or the kids that really just need a moment to be peaceful and to know that someone cares about them and that there's an adult that's willing to sit patiently with them and work through whatever that difficulty might be that keeps them from staying focused and having attention. All of those are really important. I think for me, the question is, did your passion for social justice have roots in your Dartmouth or college experience? So I am going to go back to the 1900s now. And I have to say my passion for social justice kind of snuck up on me. And it's always been, I've always been a questioner. And some of my early questions focused on the Catholics and the publics. I was in the Catholic crowd, and I kind of wondered what was going on for those publics at the bus stop, because they seemed to be pretty psyched. They weren't wearing uniforms. They talked about something called hot lunch, and they had instruments in their music class, and I only got to sing. So that was a challenging, and I sort of wondered about the other there. Then there was a time in 7th grade when I did ask Sister Rita, so are you sure only Catholics go into heaven? Because I kind of think that a Buddhist monk should get to show up. Let me just assure you that was not received well. And then the other, 7th grade was a rough year for me, too, because I also questioned a little bit about that piece in the Pledge of Allegiance that says justice for all. I grew up in the New York metropolitan area in the late 60s, early 70s. Justice for all was not evident. But I have to say, for me, when I think about my roots in social justice, and the truth is, my white privilege shielded me from even having to begin to think about social justice until I was in graduate school. And I happened to be in graduate school at a place called Shippensburg University, which is also in Pennsylvania. At the time that, and this for me is one of those divine moments where Mrs. Clery was taking action and showing what it could be like to be on a college campus and to be a higher ed professional and to challenge the really hard issues. But for me, my passion for social justice is rooted in two very specific incidents. One was very quiet and snuck up on me. I was the hall director for a building that housed the Act 101 students at Shippensburg, which were a group of young people, minority, first-generation students, who were brought to campus on the summer to get them ready to start school in September. And so for me, my apartment was outside where the public phone was, and there was a young man on my floor. His name was, he identified himself as Joseph as Philly, and he had a hard stance. He was a big man, and he was really focused on who he was. And late one night, I heard him talking to his grandmother on the phone, and he started to talk about how beautiful the stars were in Pennsylvania and that he could see them all of the time. And he talked about feeling safe in his room and that he could be in there and it not be locked, and all of his stuff was still there the next day. And he talked about showing up in the dining hall and getting to eat as much as he wanted and how he wished he could box it up and send it home. All things I had taken for granted. So that started me on that process of paying attention differently. Now here's where I got hit in the forehead. Some of my staff that fall were members of the Sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha and Delta Sigma Theta, and I got invited to the annual step show, which began at midnight at the AM, which I was like, really? Your event starts at midnight? And they were like, yes, come on out, Gabrielle. And so I went to the step show not really knowing what a step show was. And as I walked into that room, it was wild. It was jam-packed. There was great music. There was just people enjoying and celebrating. The energy was amazing. And as I looked around that room, I'm like, oh, crap, I'm the only white person here. Never happened to me before. I was 26 years old. And I took that moment and I stood there, and clearly my face was expressing what was running through my thought, because Sweet Michelle came over to me and she was like, who said something to you? and I just took a deep breath and I reached out and I said, Michelle, thank you for doing this every single day. And in that moment, it changed who I showed up as a higher ed professional, because I realized that that group of students who were gathered, and by the way, the students filled the room, but they were from 5 different colleges and universities who came together at Shippensburg for this event, that those students went back and did that every single day in their classrooms, in their residence halls, where they were the only. And for me, that really started me down a path where I needed to understand more about what my whiteness was about, how it shows up, how it impacts, and then also how can my privilege be a tool to be present and to really help and assist other people. And I will say, for me, the work of both Peggy McIntosh and also Francie Kendall have been really inspirational for me. Both of those women have helped me show up and not look at a Band-Aid in the same way, but also have a great appreciation that I never have to think about where I find a hair product. And to know how important that is, that if a college and university, for example, a small college I worked with in Pennsylvania, when we recruited students and you couldn't walk into the store and find black hair care products, maybe that was an issue for our institution. So for me, lessons learned about social change, patience and presence are really the focus for me. Growing up, I was frequently reminded that I had 2 ears and 1 mouth, which meant I need to listen twice as much as I spoke, something I still wrestle with at 55. But I think the key is really meeting people where they're at. I think where social justice sometimes really goes wrong, particularly about the white folks who are doing it, is there's this expectation that this is social justice, and damn if you're not there. And what it really is, and when we talk about really being conscious and present, it is cultural competency is about me knowing my stuff. Like, what does it mean to be a white heterosexual woman who shows up in this space? And how does that influence the dynamics and what's going to happen for the other people in the room? And I think that's that key place. That, for me, the real lesson in terms of social justice and social change is that I need to stop and I have to listen to other people's stories. I need to hear what their needs are and really understand what their needs are in terms of just meeting some of those basic needs, like hooray for Maslow. You know, I think that's our ticket and the map that we need. And my only response sometimes just needs to be, please tell me more. Please tell me more. So for me, social change happens when people's basic needs are met, when they're understood, and when I am willing to take action to support someone else's needs and to move it forward. I can't just be an ally. I have to be a partner. And so for me, the last question that we had is how do you sustain the passion that you bring to your work? One is you make a good choice of a life partner and make sure that your home is a place that energizes you, that you can find unconditional love and that you can give unconditional love. It means showing up as a woman of dignity and honor and knowing what my job is every single day when I walk in and wake up. It means about noting progress and not being held on to some vision of perfection, because I assure you, we will never hit it. But it's about noticing just those little moments of progress. You know, maybe it's the person who is in the workshop on respect and communication, who sat in the back corner with their arms crossed like this through the entire workshop, who says hello when they pass you on the green. I think the other thing is always knowing that in every single situation, there's something to learn. I will never have all the answers. And the other piece that I will just say, which has been very powerful for me in terms of looking at all of us here at the table, is an experience that I had this week, is that it all builds on each other. That as the result of the work that Mrs. Clery did and her family and her foundation, I was aware of that when I was a student in Pennsylvania. It influenced the work that I did as a higher ed professional. That moved into getting to do work here at this campus as well as others I've worked on. And last week I had the opportunity to sit with the Vermont National Guard Adjutant General to hear their report on sexual assault in the military. And during that presentation, I asked a lot of questions as a freshman representative, which I think my chair was a little surprised about. But for me, the poignant moment of that is 3 women in uniform came up to me after, thanked me and said, those were questions no one's been willing to answer. It's important that you asked them. And so I think that's the piece, is none of us are solo, none of us are a silo. All the work that we do in social justice anchors and builds on each other. So thank you for being here and showing up, and Ms. Clery, thank you for all your contributions to who I get to be too.
Gabrielle, I think you're quite ready for the House of Representatives. Frank, could you share with us?
Sure. I have, first of all, I have a real difficult time answering questions. I'm more the guy that answers questions. I mean, I tell people what I want and what I expect and what needs to be done. When Len called me about this award, the Social Justice Award, I'll be real honest with you, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it really meant. And I looked it up. I Googled it, naturally. And believe me, there was all sorts of things about social justice, what it meant and what it didn't mean, and what it was, really. And ultimately, when I found out what it is, and it's really the persona on you as a person feel, the way that you as a person is going to operate your life, but most importantly, you as a person that judges morals and the way things are supposed to be. There's laws all over the land on everything that you can imagine. There's people that break the laws and don't break the laws, that see it. But what is the thing as far as social justice, and what is it right for people and what it means? I talked a little bit about the prisoners, and I can remember when I had guys that used to call me chicken because I had my manufacturing plants way out in the suburbs, out in the country. My grandparents moved from Mexico in 1917, and my grandpa had a dream that he was going to go to Dearborn, Michigan and work for $5 a day for Henry Ford. He was a gatekeeper for 8 years. He officially got hired at Ford Motor Company in 1925. And what a gatekeeper was, it was people that stood outside the gate and waited for the plant to start its shift. And however many people were short, they would go out to the gate and pick them. And they were mostly minorities. And my grandfather was one of the most sought-after gatekeepers to come to work. He worked for Ford for 41 years as an assembly line worker. My father worked for Ford Motor Company as an assembly line worker for 39 years. They dreamed that I was going to become an engineer and save their money and sent me to college. And I went to school for 2 years. I don't know if I wasn't ready, or maybe the college wasn't ready for me. But more than anything else is I left, and I showed up after I was home for 6 months and told my mom and dad that I got a job and I was a floor sweeper, and they weren't happy. But more than anything else is I won the car and I took things, and then I can still remember my friend that used to call me chicken, and I had the opportunity. Bear in mind, I won this 1979 Cadillac, and it was built in Detroit. And then in 1995, I had the opportunity to move back to Detroit. And I actually bought the old Cadillac plant that built my car. They closed it. They built the Cadillac in my plant from 1934 to 1984. It was incredible. The place was a mess. There was prostitution walking up and down the streets. There was gangs running around crazy. I was lucky because I knew most of the gangs. I knew the leaders. I knew the people. Unemployment was at 40%. No one thought about kids. And I was coming in here with about 60 jobs into this area with people that were not used to going into the hood. Most of the people were white engineers. It was amazing. You always find that person in the neighborhood that can connect dots, and we found that person. And they allowed us to sit down. We had the police. We had the clergy, because the police and clergy work so well together. And then being an employer, we're important, because one of the biggest things that they do, if you get in trouble, you're going to go get a job and you do the things right. And then we had the parents. And they sat down and they said, here's what we want you to do. We want you to sit down with the gang guys, because we know that you know them. So I sat down with 4 of the 5 gang leaders. It was incredible. You know, you didn't have a place you met until 10 minutes before. They were always worried about the police, and there was all sorts of these youth walking around, and I'm sure that they were wired up and they were ready to do what was needed. And when I asked them for peace in the neighborhood so that I could hire and create employment and bring my company back to Detroit, where my grandfather was from, they said to me the oddest things in the world. They said, okay, we'll give you the peace, but we want jobs, we want benefits, we want a ladder to climb to get more, and most importantly, we don't want you to leave. I hired 80 of them from 4 different gangs. It was pretty incredible. I didn't take 20 from one gang, 20 from one gang, 20 and 20. I put them all together. It was amazing. You had people that didn't like each other, that wore blues and reds and greens and yellow, and that meant what they were and what they weren't. We didn't allow colors in our place. But it was amazing. I can still remember 2 weeks later watching these 2 guys working so well together. I thought they were brothers. They were brothers with different mothers. And he explained those 4 holes in the door are holes that I shot in your car. And today they're working together. And it created this opportunity within the neighborhood on how we have jobs. And it just kept on revolving and moving things farther and farther. And to the point where we're in I sponsor a school called Cristo Rey High School. And today I can tell you we've had 4 years of 100% graduation. And we're talking about not cherry picking youth. All my kids have an income of $22,000 and less for family. And what happened was 4 years in a row we've had 100% graduation. 4 years in a row we've had 100% acceptance in college, and we get about 85% of our kids go to school. The other 15%, it's kind of amazing because I'm in the trades. I'm a construction guy. I build things and stuff. And if you look at the trades, it's a white-run thing. If you're working as an iron worker, as a cement guy, or so many things, you can go back in the trail and find out that most likely the brother or the uncle or the cousin has a job as a concrete guy or as an iron worker, and you cannot get a job unless you're related. Well, now I'm one of the largest trade hirers in the state of Michigan. I have more iron workers work for me than anyone in the state of Michigan most times. And guess what I did? I told the unions what I want. I want the opportunity for the trades guys to accept young people from the neighborhood, to have the opportunity to become an iron worker, to be an electrician, to be a plumber. But then with this school that come about where we got 100% graduation, I had this opportunity to see these kids. They were almost there. They were all going to college, but they were not prepared when they got to school, even though we were a college preparatory. And Sylvia and I, we had the opportunity, and what we did is we asked, what could we do to have our kids go to college in the senior year and give them an opportunity that no one has had. And they take their last half of their senior year and they receive 3 to 7 credits. Now, when my kids go to school, they're more ready than ever before. Well, eventually I moved my headquarters down there, and I now have about 500 people that work for me. But I will say this, I can go back 15 years ago, my business wasn't at 500 employees, and it wasn't at 250 million. It might have been 70 or 80 million, and I mean, it was growing, it was good. And I had this chance to come to Tuck. And I was in the executive program with Len Granger. And I really found out what was so special about Tuck. I'll never forget it. It's an amazing thing that when I can remember looking at the people that went to school with me for that 1 week were my friends and we learned so much, people of the same color as me and the same background of what we do and what goes on. But the most impressive thing and the most fascinating thing is Len invited me to come back and keeps inviting me to come back and asked me to participate and be a member on the board. And now, I wish that I could say that I was the class of '74 at Dartmouth, but I do say that I am a part of Dartmouth, and I'm a lifelong example on what Dartmouth education can do for someone with an opportunity. I just gotta say more than anything else is that without this opportunity and without this chance, it would not give me to demonstrate to help other people. And that is part of my mission in life, and nobody said I had to do it. Nobody said that you want to do it. But ultimately, it really goes back into what social justice is and what it means to people that don't have. And as you can tell, I'm real nervous up here, and I'm kind of scared, but more than anything else, President, I want to thank you for this great opportunity, and thank you.
And thank you very much, Frank. They are pretty smart cookies at Tut, and they knew a star when they saw one. I am so happy that Connie is now going to talk with us.
I feel inadequate, but I'm going to try. My object after Jeannie's death was, it changed me completely. I used to be a wallflower, but I changed, and I decided to fight for Jean, because I don't think there is anything worse than losing a child. And the way we lost her, I am surprised that my family is alive and well, because statistically, 70 to 75% of families in situations of such horror do not stick together. We made it. It wasn't always easy. I was terrified that my 3 men, my 2 sons and my husband, would land in jail. They were so angry. I had to protect them, so I had to survive too. And believe it or not, my 2 sons are happy now. I see them at peace in the last 2 years. To me, that's a miracle. They are at peace. They're not CEOs of great companies, but that is the best gift I could ever have, and I'm so proud of them. And it's thanks to Howard. He was so brave and strong-willed. I don't know who was more stubborn, he or I, but anyway, I'm just so glad to be here. I'm so proud of Dartmouth, and I'm so anxious to be able to help Dartmouth move forward and show the rest of the country the way to do it. Because I think the reason I had to do it for Jean, because she was so precious. We all loved her so much. She was just, as my son Ben said, she was joy. And so I had to make her life worthwhile. And thanks to the nation, the people who wrote their letters to Congress, and all of my lobbying, you know, she lives on through you students, all of you wonderful professors and wonderful presidents in colleges who care. She lives on, and I think as long as there will be colleges and universities, Jean will live on and save lives. She loved children. That's the best thing I could say, that she is saving lives. I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. We have lots of time.
Value system, I have to say, my family was so wonderful. But I have to say, I'm the first of my family to go to college. My parents were immigrants. I mean, my mother's family, they were all immigrants. My father just managed to get over the border when he was born. And they were all from Canada, French Canada. But they loved family. And we had such good value system. I knew if I got into trouble at school, I'd be in double trouble at home. Absolutely. And I never heard anything about prejudice in my home, either my father's family or my mother's family. But there was one interesting, it just brings to mind, little story that my mother had 9 children. There were 9 children in her family, 7 girls and 2 boys. And one day, they had settled in what they called Yankee area of New Bedford, Massachusetts, my favorite hometown, the greatest whaling city in the world. Mm-hmm. It lit up the world, you know, before electricity. New Bedford lit up the world. A lot of people don't like to talk about New Bedford because it has problems. But anyway, I don't know how I got it. Oh, so my mother's family ended up in the Yankee section of New Bedford. And the children went to what used to be a one-room schoolhouse. Of course, they didn't know any English when they moved. So one day, my aunt came home and she said to my grandfather, "What'll I do? They call us French baboons." And my grandfather, of course, I don't think the French are really great fighters, excuse me. But anyway, I'm speaking for my own family. But my grandfather thought, and he said, "Just call them Johnny Bulls." Well, when I told Howie, my husband, that story, and of course his great love was history, and he knew everything. If I'd only had him as a history professor, I might not have done so poorly. But he said, "Johnny Bulls." He thought that was hilarious. He couldn't even figure out what significance did that have. So it was kind of laughable. But there was another thing that just came to mind. When it came for me to go to college, my father's family did not want me to go. They were afraid if I went to college, I would never come back home. They were right. You know. But my mother was very strong, and she said I could go to college if I wanted to. And she was very much encouraging that. So that's my family. I was so lucky. We were just ordinary, working people, but great, great, lots of love. I'm trying to think of what the other one was. What about society, the social change? I guess I'm old enough. I did notice social change. And I noticed from the 60s on, there seems to be a real different era from what I grew up in, where we respected one another. And by the way, girls who dated with boys, we were told we were the ones who had to control the situation because we were stronger. So anyway, in the 60s, it seems there was a kind of a slogan, do your own thing, turn the cheek, don't get involved. And it was a truly egocentric society. And I wonder if we're not reaping the results of that. I just hope that in our moving forward with Dartmouth and our campus, our efforts to make campuses safer, that students, everybody will start really speaking up, because I think of the Virginia Tech situation, where if those two roommates had known how dangerous, and they did know how dangerous their roommate Cho was, if they had only reported him and not worried, they could have saved 23 lives. So I believe in speaking out when you're speaking the truth. And to wind up, I guess the last thing was, what has motivated me? What is my passion? And it's very simple. It's not the 3 R's, it's the 3 F's plus, well, that is faith, family, and friends, plus love, which encompasses all 3. And I have to tell you a little thing about the friends. When Howard and I started on this crusade, it was very difficult. But one of the most difficult things was for us to deal with is we lost so many friends. We couldn't believe that, but we did. And these were people who'd been friends for a long time, but they treated us like pariahs after we started our crusade, because they didn't want to be associated with us. And I know that for a fact. I have to tell you a little story. My very good friend and tennis partner, one day, I very foolishly, when we started the crusade, started out with a petition. I didn't know I'd never been in politics. I didn't know what I was doing. But I thought, you know, I just wanted to make campuses safer. So I wrote up this petition, and I'd go to the railroad station at Bryn Mawr. And not many people wanted to sign. Everyone was afraid. But one day, I had a lot of tennis friends, and this one day, we were going to be practicing indoors. And my tennis partner came up, and I said, oh, would you like to sign my petition? Fully expecting that she would. And she looked at me and said, I cannot. I said, you can't? Why? Why can't you sign my petition? She knew my daughter. Her daughter and my daughter were friends. I let her daughter wear my daughter's gowns. She said, I'm afraid of ramifications. That was like a double-edged sword when our friends just left us. But you know who didn't leave us? Dartmouth. Our classmates at Dartmouth never left us. They always supported us and never made fun of us or criticized us. And that didn't mean just the great class of '53. It meant Frank Logan and all the others, and Bill, and anyone Dartmouth that I knew. Thank you, Dartmouth. And I'm so proud to be part of it.
Thank you so much, Connie. You may have lost a lot of friends, but you gained more. You may have lost a lot of friends, but you gained far more.
Oh, I feel so good here.
Thank you.
Richard.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. It's a real, honor to be really among such committed people. A few years ago, I was having a conversation with former Dartmouth President Jim Wright, who was my colleague when I was here in the government department and African American Studies, and Jim Wright was in history. And we were talking about writing, and I was talking about, yes, I have to write up these experiences. And he was saying, Richard, get on with it. By awarding me the Lifetime Achievement Award, I get a feeling like I am being prodded to get on with it. So this is just a little glimpse of it. Two themes that came to me as I was listening to the presentations today is opening doors and building ladders. Someone opens doors for us, and someone puts down ladders that we can climb up. And, those of us, we just find ourselves feeling like, those are commitments that carry through to this life. In fact, I started jotting down some of the people who are coming to mind. I, thought of George Jonas. You could go online to Camp Rising Sun in Rhinebeck, New York, that I attended just a year after coming from Trinidad, my first international. He was an industrialist, and decided and became a philanthropist and created a summer camp devoted to international understanding. I think of the A Better Chance program. We were here, short while ago. Hi, Nelson. And celebrating the 50th anniversary of the inaugural year of A Better Chance, 1964. All right. I'll go through the questions, as promptly as I can. First of all, about what it is brought about, your sense of promoting change in your life's work. In my case, I came to the United States at age 13, and I'm almost certain that when I applied to Dartmouth, I had an idea that I wanted to be a medical doctor. So I was admitted to Dartmouth as a pre-med and went through all my pre-med at Dartmouth. I always remember in Trinidad reading a story about, I think it was a boy, who had to be sent to either the US or the UK to have heart surgery because they just did not have the facilities at the time. And I thought to myself, well, Trinidad was moving towards independence and so on. It should be able to have doctors able to perform such surgery. Also, the movement for independence under Dr. Eric Williams in Trinidad, the People's National Movement. I didn't know at the time that what I was experiencing there in Trinidad would influence me so much during my life. So basically, these were things that, if I had to go back and ask myself, where did it started, I will certainly point to those two moments. The second about the passion for social justice, what were their roots in your Dartmouth experience? In my case, it's absolutely yes. I am so delighted that President Handlin and Gail Gentes are really promoting experiential learning. My whole life has been about experiential learning. I usually describe myself as a scholar activist. I was that way at Dartmouth, and I've been that way always. The Dartmouth Christian Union under George Kapfleisch. I learned, quite frankly, as much there as I did in my classrooms. And it just, two things coincided my junior year at Dartmouth. One was awareness of, the inequities in America. I helped, found it was called the Negro Applications Encouragement Program, and Dartmouth students get involved in going to their communities to encourage applications. And I met some of those students, in fact, who saw Dartmouth students coming to their schools, at that time. And also started a Valley tutorial program, becoming aware of poverty here in the Upper Valley. And I still have letters, in my files, in my archives, of students who were able to be tutored by Dartmouth students during that period. And then, of course, we had the Great Issues program, started by President John Dickey, and that there's the influence of dealing with national, political, global issues during that period. In fact, we plan and hope to, following the witness exhibit, to have a meeting at Dartmouth, perhaps later this fall, where we want to bring back some of the people who were involved as activists during the 60s. And some of them, for example, many people are aware of the invitation, having Malcolm X come here. But all of us who were involved in these issues, dealing with George Wallace and so on coming to campus, we need to bring some of those people back so that we can really talk about it. In terms of one lesson that you've learned about social change that I'd like to share, it is that it's very, very, very difficult. I worked with former President Jimmy Carter for 6 years, and one of the things he used to say was, you must not be afraid to fail. When you get involved in this kind of work, failure rate is very high. And in fact, I was down there recently and thinking about some of the writing, I want to do about that period working with Carter. And somebody said, well, sometimes you're not aware of the seeds, that are plowed, that are laid during that period when you look back, all right? And just thinking of it in that way. So, and again, getting back to, to President Handlin here, and he mentioned John Kemeny. I happen to have taken John Kemeny's calculus class, and happened to have had a few years with him when he was president here. And it's not only what he achieved, and we know that, we could enumerate it, but also what he endured. You have to be aware of that other side of it, and this is why with President Handlin, I find it necessary to speak up very strongly, because it's not going to be just smooth sailing. Let's face it. And it wasn't that way for Kemeny. Any of the greater the transformation you carry out is going to be, the greater the headwinds, the greater the pushback. We used to sing, lest the old traditions fail. There's some traditions at Dartmouth that needed to fail and disappear a long time ago. I could sing some of those awful, awful songs, right? I won't do it. But they were going through my mind this morning. Finally, how do you sustain the passion you bring to your work? And my wife, Jennifer, must be really chuckling to herself here in terms of that question. The song, the last song that was sang about, those who believe in freedom cannot rest. I remember it was mentioned, I've worked on Nigeria a long time, and Nigeria is going through a really, really terrible period. I'm going to be back here in early April for a workshop that we're having dealing with that situation. But I remember during the period 1993 to 1998, Nigeria was under a dictator named Sani Abacha. And things were really, really bad in Nigeria. And I'll always remember a Nigerian colleague writing me, because I was very much involved in supporting them. And he said to me, Richard, don't be tired. In other words, you can't get tired. Fortunately, Abacha was eliminated, and Nigeria was able to return to a democratic path. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., I mention it to you all because this is not just, this wonderful moment we're sharing this, but, moving forward. And we're having a round table in Haldeman at 125, Haldeman 125, at 3 p.m. and talking about the moving Dartmouth forward, talking about to handle and plan a number of the initiatives, but also talking about how it connects with some of the ideas that many of us, especially the Black Alumni of Dartmouth Association, which has done so much work. So let me just finalize. Getting back to the question, how do you sustain the passion? I read the New York Times every day, every morning. And it's all there on the page. You know, right now, of course, I'm dealing with just the horrors being perpetrated, especially Boko Haram. You know, and then I go to work. If I only read about those situations, and I couldn't address them. So my way is automatic. But finally, you know, Jennifer and I, you know, we say a prayer at every meal. And I can tell you, we give different versions of this prayer. These are my final comments. That we give thanks for our blessings, our amazing blessings in this life. We express compassion for those in need, for those in distress, for those in pain. You know, we ask, you know, what can we do to share our blessings and to ease the burdens of others. In my case, a lot of my life, as I mentioned, has been devoted to, you know, opening doors, building ladders, and especially for people caught up in conflict, violent conflict, people mired in extreme poverty, people dealing with brutal political repression. I've dealt with this, you know, like I said, since my Dartmouth days, and I'll be doing that, you know, as long as there's a Richard Joseph on this world. Thank you very much.
Before I officially release this incredible group of people, 2 very lucky people get to ask a question. And if we don't have 2 lucky people waiting, so I'm going to give you a couple of seconds for. Okay, then I will make my final statement to you. You have worked so hard, all of you. And Oscar, I know you are young, but you've worked incredibly hard. And I know there are days you really want to give up. You get tired, you want to go home and give up. So I need you to, first of all, hyphen. I'm going to give you an additional name to your last name. You're going to hyphenate it. And whatever your last name is, after the hyphen, it's going to be Lighthouse. All of you. That's your official last name, Lighthouse. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. When I kayak along the Maine coast, regardless to where I am, even if I'm not going far, I look for a lighthouse because I figure if I get lost, it's as if I'm going very far. If I get lost, if I just clue in on where that last lighthouse that I saw was, then I can always kayak back to it. I'm looking for a lighthouse. So if any of you get tired and you decide, I can't do this anymore, I want you to say, I can't quit. I'm the lighthouse, and Evelyn may be looking for me. Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to take a moment to thank you all, the audience, President Hanlon and Evelyn Ellis, and the Rockapellas for joining us to recognize our honorees and learn from them and, you know, be really motivated by them. And hopefully, you know, their work has inspired us, and I know it has for me. The ceremony has concluded, and I ask you all to please join us for a reception in the lobby. And thank you all so much for coming, and please have a wonderful evening.